In this video, we're going to be talking about a sales process that has helped me from the beginning be able to convert new GCs that come in and have them become recurring GCs that give us continued work. So let's just get right into it. There are two big challenges that a new subcontract deals with, right? Number one is, how do I get more work? And number two is, how do I get GCs to give me work, right? So the solution to that is a sales process that I like to call closer formula framework. Okay, now this closer formula framework, a lot of you, if you guys have been in real estate, if you guys been in any kind of cold sales, you guys understand what this means, right? And this is a typical framework that a lot of people use to do a one-time call close, right? So meaning you talk to a lead and then that same moment you're looking to close them within that same call, right? Or that same interaction. I took that from my real estate days, but I changed it. So rather it be a one call close, it's more like a process that you take your GC, a journey and an experience that you take them down, right? Because this breaks down into phases. Now, this will make more sense as I explain here. So I'm going to explain to you what this means, right? So C, create the problem. L, lead the conversation. O, offer solutions. S, set deadlines to beat. E, exceptional communication. R, relationship first. Okay, so we're going to get into it. Let's start with C, creating the problem. So when you create the problem, there are really two times when you're doing this. You're going to be doing it during your outbound and during your follow-up. Okay, so you create the problem during your outbound because essentially what you're asking with your first email is, do you have a need for our service? A lot of subs get this confused, right? They think that they send out 100 emails and they're going to get an opportunities in those. It's not realistic. And to be honest, this is one of the things that I did myself. I thought, okay, I sent out 100 emails. I should be getting, 10, 20 different opportunities to bid on. That's not what happens. Once I switched my mind and my perspective around that first email, I understood that the first email, really what it does is it asks the GC, do you have a need for our service, right? All we're looking is to track the metrics on our email. We're looking to track to see if the emails are getting open and how many times they're getting seen. If they get a reply, it's almost like a bonus, if you will. Okay, and so that first email is very important to not attach yourself to any specific results because it's not realistic, right? Then we're going to go over to the follow-up. During the follow-up, how are you creating that problem? Well, if in the initial message they saw your email 5, 10 times, you gave them a call and you said, hey, I realize you saw my message a couple times. Is there a need for our service? And they say, yeah, there could be, right? It's just not ready right now. So the follow-up, the way that you continue to create that problem is every time that you do this, you're reminding them and asking them, does our service still make sense for you? Okay, that's how we're going to be looking at C from the closer acronym. So let's move down to L. L, lead the conversation. Okay, this is one of the biggest ones whenever I explain this to the individuals that do the 90-day mentorship with me or a growth challenge with me. It's that you got to always be looking at how you're going to lead them from one point to the next. Okay, this is what this is, right? C is the first point. That's point A. That's, hey, who's interested? And then continue to remind them that, hey, you told us you were interested, right? Now, once they express interest, once they reply, we're not actively leading them down to the point where they can give us an opportunity. And we do that by answering their questions, right? So there's going to be two types of GCs. There's going to be the type of GCs that has a lot of questions at the beginning, and there's going to be the type of GC that doesn't really have many questions. They may have a little more of an urgency. They may have a bigger need, and so their questions are less, and those are going to be the ones that you can guide down a little quicker, right? But what I've noticed is that the GCs that do have questions, they're typically questions like, what kind of experience do you have? Are you capable of completing this type of project that we're looking to give you? Okay. And then price. If you see here, price is actually highlighted in orange because it's one of the ones that I noticed that when a lot of contractors have a lot of questions, if they stick around too much on the price, almost most of the time, they're looking to get the cheaper price, right? They're looking to, they're not really going to respect your high-end price, which is okay. Just be mindful of it. Now, if they don't have a lot of questions, they're simply going to be talking like more future talk. They're going to be talking about start dates. They're going to be letting you know, hey, the project is going to be ready in 2 weeks. It's going to be ready in 1 week. That is the kind of things you want to look for, right? Not so much they're not qualifying you, rather than, hey, this is when we're ready to go. Okay. So if they do have a lot of questions, your goal with that is going to be to answer their questions thoroughly. So if they're asking questions about your expertise, about past experience, about maybe addresses that they can go by and see, well, answer the questions and then gain control. How do you gain control? You keep the conversation moving. Okay. Hey, yes, you know what? I actually have a project over on 123 Main Street. You can swing by and take a look at it. Hey, just curious, what kind of time frame were you looking to start this project in, right? That could be example of answering their question, giving them what they were looking for, but then readdressing it and continuing down the process where what we want to ultimately know is what kind of time frame are you guys working with, so I can know when to turn in my bids and when to be ready for your project. Okay. Now for the ones that don't have a lot of questions, what's the ultimate goal for them? Is just to start working them down a signed agreement, right? If they're not asking you questions, if they're telling you when it's ready to get going, if they're doing future talk, then it's, hey, well, listen, I'm going to send over the proposal. When can you complete? So we can just go ahead and get this agreement in place. Okay. So that's leading the conversation. Now we're going to go down to O, which is offering solutions. Now, you probably notice on this one, you see a before and after, right? So you're going to see before and you're going to see after. This is going to be before a bid, and this is going to be after a bid. These are two different situations and two different ways to go about it. So before a bid, they're really going to be asking you about, concerns that they've had with past vendors. Past vendor had a lot of water intrusion with their stucco. Do you know how to deal with this specific area? Okay, they're going to be a little more specific around their problems. Okay, and especially on the job site visits, right? When you're on the job site visit, they're going to take you to the areas that they know where they've had bad experiences. For example, one of the biggest ones for us is, like I said, in water intrusions with stucco. A lot of these guys don't necessarily know the exact vinyl beads that need to go into certain areas, and so they point us and they take us to the overhangs, to the different places where the frame and the block meets, because these are the areas where a lot of the water comes into the houses, right? Those are going to be more or less where we offer solutions around their projects before we get awarded the bid. Now, after we get awarded the bid, obviously it's going to be on the job site walk, right? After we get awarded, it's always, hey, let's go meet up out there. We're about 2 weeks from the start date. Let's walk it. Let's see what's going on. During the plan reviews, every time that I get a job awarded, I go back and revisit just to make sure, okay, are there any last minute clarifications that I may have missed during my estimating process where I can clarify and make sure that we see, and obviously from previous experience. So I'll give you an example. Last Friday, we were actually meeting on the job site with a new builder that we're looking to start, and they wanted us to do, they have some build out framing. Hopefully, maybe you guys can see the picture on here. I'll include a picture. And they wanted us to do the outside of that overhang, but not the underside. The underside was going to have a tongue and groove ceiling. One of the past experiences that we had was that underside tongue and groove got installed, but they didn't drop down the exterior fascia low enough. And so when we finished our stucco, the ceiling was exposed, right? You don't want that, not on a $6-7 million home. And so we went ahead and told them, hey, on the exterior of that fascia, you might want to bring it down, maybe half an inch lower. That way your tongue and groove can stay underneath there. That'll function as a drip cap, and then, we'll be ready to go. We won't have that same problem, right? And so this is how, after we've awarded a project, during a job site visit, we're looking at different areas and we're offering them solutions. Why? Because this is where they continue to say, oh, wow, okay, we made the right decision. We chose these guys to help us out on this project, and they're already giving us solutions before they even start, right? That's what you want to do. Now, the goal with this, like I mentioned, is to increase your perceived value, right? You want to take advantage of every time, every interaction, so that they can know and reiterate the experience that you have. Give them confidence that they've made the right choice. Now we're going to move down to setting deadlines to beat. Again, this is going to be before you get a project and after you get a project, right? So before you get a project, how are you going to set deadlines to beat? They may have a question. Hey, have you seen I sent over the bids. When do you think you can get those back to me? You know what? I'll get those back to you by including a date, right? Now, one important thing here is that you always want to make sure that you meet that date, beat that date if you can, right? So for me, I know that typically on my days now, I can take anywhere from 3 to 4 days to estimate a job thoroughly. And so I'll give myself maybe a week and some change, right? That's just what I tell them. I know that in 3 or 4 days, I can turn in a well-done estimate, and it could be something where I highlight to them and just say, hey, listen, I got it turned in a little quicker. Take a review. Let me know if you have any questions, right? This speaks volumes to them. This speaks responsibility. It speaks that you're organized, and it speaks that you're just a professional business owner. The submittal dates, again, hey, I'm going to turn in my estimate. Hey, I'm going to get this revision back to you, right? These are things that you're going to look to do before. After, they're going to be scope revisions, right? There's going to be a lot of things that change, especially if you're in high-end custom homes. High-end custom homes have changes all the time, right? These custom homeowners, then they want something the other way, and so those revisions are timely for them, right? Sometimes they cut into your scheduled dates, and so the quicker that you can get to them, the better, but be realistic about it. Set a day and say, hey, I can get this back to you by the end of the week. And if you can do it before then, it's always going to be better, okay? And obviously your work completion. I like to give myself about 3-4 days cushion, because you never know. There's weather here in Florida that comes out of nowhere. And so 3-4 days, I've noticed, okay, that's really good. If we can set 2 weeks out plus those 3-4 days, and then we beat it, it's always going to be a good experience for our client. And again, the goal with this one, which is setting the deadline, is to just give them a level of execution that they have not used to, right? Let them know your professionalism, show your professionalism, show how much you care, show how much you respect their times, because ultimately respecting their times only means you're respecting your own. So let's move on down to exceptional communication. So before, you're going to be looking for, your communication is going to come during the follow-ups, right? Avoiding future problems, reminders. So you're going to be thinking ahead. You're going to be thinking, hey, I saw this on the blueprints. Last time it bit us in the ass, like maybe just take a look at this one, right? Or you might want to do this. We noticed that last time the way that the plans show it isn't really feasible on the site, right? This is the communication that you want before you get awarded, right? During the relationship building process. Now, after, your communication is going to be strictly around scheduling. Hey, we're scheduled out for the end of the week to get delivered on material, and then we'll jump on that at the beginning of the next week. Progress reports, I like to send out too. At the beginning of the week, this is what we're planning to do. And on Friday at the end of the week, this is what we did do, and including different pictures with that. I've noticed that these high-end custom home builders appreciate that, because what they do is they simply share those pictures with their clients. Hey, look, this is what has been going. And so all of a sudden, your process kind of becomes something that they depend on in a way, because I've gotten to the point where contractors just ask me, like, hey, you didn't send any weekly pictures this do you have any of those for me? My client really appreciates those. Do you have 1 or 2 that you can send over that I can show them, right? And obviously, taking pictures of your job site as you're going is always going to help you. There's been so many times where, hey man, we didn't take pictures of this. Do you have pictures of the frame before you install your lab, before you install your siding? It helps them, right? And it helps us protect ourselves to make sure that, hey, we installed over everything that was done correctly, or we sealed this area and here's the picture to prove it, right? And then ongoing project adjustments. So you always want to have great communication around that, right? If he comes in and says, hey, we're going to make a change, and then continue to have that communication to see how that's going to look, right? A lot of these custom home builds, again, that's what I work with. They remove roofs, they add roofs, they take out columns, they add in columns. And so all of this takes a lot of coordination on their end, but also a lot of coordination on your end with your crew, and obviously giving them feedback onto, hey, I know you're looking to do this, but this might not be the best way. This is what we've seen work. Different things like that. And the goal with giving them exceptional communication is giving them an exceptional experience, right? And so experience is the one thing that's going to set you apart. Experience is the one thing that's going to let you charge the money that you feel is fair for your service, right? But ultimately, when someone buys, when someone purchases, they're purchasing an experience, right? They're not really saying, okay, maybe apples to apples, these 3 subcontractors have the same execution as far as the actual work, right? But contractor A doesn't answer his phone. Subcontractor B sometimes answers his phone. But listen, you guys, me, subcontractor C, right? The quality subcontractor is always answering the phone, is sending us weekly reports, is sending us pictures, is always, looking for things to help us with, right? And so that's where you give them an experience rather than a simple interaction or a simple exchange of services. And moving on down to the final one, but in my opinion, the most important is relationship, right? Before, you're going to be focused on, growing that relationship, starting it, giving them some kind of exchange, right? And for me, at least what's worked really well is that when I do those initial talks, most of these custom home builders are telling you, we're probably 4 or 6 months out before they can actually give you an opportunity, but during which they might not be having the best experience with their provider, right? And so I look for smaller items that maybe the other provider hasn't came back to do. Maybe a little punch out list. And so I'm looking, hey, is there anything that I can do for you? Is there a favor that you may need help with, right? Is there something that's that your other stuff has maybe been putting aside? You don't have to give us the full price. Just give us maybe labor only on that. But what I want them to do is experience that even a small item that like that, we come in, we take care of, and we still give them the weekly report. We still give them the same level of experience, right? Now, after, obviously, this is where I think they see the biggest difference, right? Number one, being fair with changes, right? So what can you include that's additional, or go over the top in areas that allow it? And I'll explain each. You want to be fair with changes as far as, like I said, these clients do a lot of changes. One day they want something, the next day they want something else. And so some of these changes obviously are going to be an additional cost. You don't have to kill your contractor, right? This isn't where you make the profit for the job site, right? Yes, you paid for the time that you're going to put in and the materials and whatever, but you don't have to knock them over their head with it either, right? And so one of the things that we like to do that my dad has taught me a lot is this one. What can you include, right? Is it maybe just a window change? Like, do we have enough profits built under where this client or this contractor is worth it to say, hey, you know what? Don't worry about that. That one's on us. Just keep us in mind for the next one, and we'll keep it running, right? What can you include? What can you help them out with? Okay. And then go over top on areas that allow it. Like I said, there are different areas. I don't know, your scope all will have a different thing, but like, for example, us on stucco, there are a lot of shortcuts that people could take on this, in this trade. We like to just go over the top on everything. So even if he doesn't call for a specific plastic bead or for a specific type of finish, we always like to do what's best for the house, right? What's going to give ultimately the client the best experience that they're going to like the stucco work or the siding work. So going over the top in areas that allow it has helped us build a great relationship. And the goal with this is to communicate to them that we're teammates, right? Look, when we're on your job site with custom home builders, we are part of the custom home building team. You know what I mean? We're not here as individuals. Yes, we're our individual subcontractors, but we're here. We represent your company, and we're looking for you to give your client a great experience, because we know that that's going to continue to give us work, right? Every time that I can take the time to voice this to them, as well as like, hey man, when we're on that job site, we're your teammates. It just helps a lot, because they start to begin to believe like this relationship is more mutual than it is in me trying to screw you over, or you guys just trying to screw us over, which I think it's a lot of what goes on in this industry as a whole. But that's a different topic. So now let's just bring this up to the top really quick. Now I want you to see now from afar, right? See this. So if we come back out, right, to the closer formula, we're looking at it again, right? Now look at this on the right, on the green. Creating the problem and leading the conversation is when you're outbounding email. These are those initial touches. These are those first touches where you're trying to just, hey, who's going to raise their hand? Who's going to be able to give me an opportunity? Once you get that to happen, you go down to offering solutions and setting deadlines to beat. Once you're here, you're really in lead nurture, right? You're really just leading them to take the next step, right? Nurturing them, answering their questions, walking them down this process so that you can eventually be able to execute on the work so that you can get reoccurring work. And that happens on the exceptional communication and the relationship. And so all of these three together, right? You have a before, which again is the creating the problem and leading the conversation. Then you have your offering solutions, setting deadlines, and even exceptional communication ties into the during project phase. Once your project is completed is where you're building the relationship, right? So again, just to recap, at the top, when you're creating the problem, you're doing your new outbound emails, right? Then you're gauging, does this GC have interest? Okay. Once you realize, okay, yeah, they do have interest, you go down to, now you understand their need. You understand what they're looking for. You understand what the previous subcontractor did that you could be better at, right? And then you go down to, you separating yourself from the competition when you're setting your deadlines to beat, when you're executing on the things you're telling them that you're going to return to them. So once you separate yourself from the competition, right, you're looking to prove working with you just makes sense. And this comes with the exceptional communication, right? They're just going to say, oh man, these individuals, they just communicate so much better. It's just easier to work with them, right? And then you come down to the last one, which is going to be the fair executions. So this happens at the end, right? This is where, hey, you know what? That's a justifiable change, we'll, if it's a big change, we're going to get compensated for that. If it's something that we can throw in there, well, then that's going to be your fair exchange where we're like, you know what, we'll just capture it on the next one. But when you go up to the top, this is what you need to grow. Okay, so if you understand what that is, if you say, okay, I can do that, now these are going to be the things that you're going to have to focus on, which are the 5 core functions. Number 1, you need to generate consistent leads. Number 2, you need a nurture process. 3, you need a sales process, which is actually what I just showed you. Number 4, fulfillment and operations, and then recurring work, right? So the first 3, generating leads, nurturing those leads, and selling those leads, is actually going to be your priority. Those are the first 3 things that you need to focus on. So if you don't have enough leads, you need to go and build an email list. So if you look through my channel, I have a video that explains that. If you don't know how to nurture those leads, again, all you got to do is work on the follow-up. Again, look through my channel, I have a video for that. And then the sales process is essentially what I just showed you, which is this closer framework. If you're able to take them down from C down to R, you're going to have a good experience with this contractor. And I guarantee you they're going to be looking to give you more work. And so your to-do after this video is to go find your leads, contact those leads, and then begin generating opportunities. Okay. So I hope that video cleared up a little bit of what our sales process looks like, gave you a little more clarity around it. If you have any questions, you can drop those in the comments. Other than that, look through my channel. There's going to be plenty of videos that are going to help you and answering most of your questions. If you're somebody who's a little more advanced, who would like a little more one-on-one time with me, then you can find that link in my bio, and I'll look forward to it. So as always, you just got to do the work and do what's required.